Hello, hello, and welcome to the DIY Musician Podcast. I'm Jack, and I've been a fan of this next guest for quite a while. He also goes by the name of Jack, and he is in several successful bands, one being Pomplamoose, writing original music, doing some really awesome mashup covers, also Scary Pockets, and they've really built a big following of true fans, and they've been able to monetize that. And Jack took that an extra step further and created a platform. He co-founded and is the CEO of Patreon. And so we talk about all kinds of stuff about making music, about balancing being a CEO and a creator. It was really a wonderful conversation. We had lots of laughs. And we also hear why Jack thinks that the follower is dead in 2024. And if you've ever heard or seen Jack Conte speak, you'll know he always brings the energy. And this time he did not disappoint. So I'll leave it at that. Please enjoy my interview with Jack Conte.
You're listening
to the CD Baby
CD Baby
CD Baby
DIY
Musician
Podcast.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Yeah.
Right on. Welcome to the DIY Musician Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's really great to have you. How are you on this beautiful, foggy Thursday morning?
I'm doing great.
Is it foggy? Are you in San Francisco?
Right now I'm in LA.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And how's the weather down there?
Gorgeous.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you. I've been a fan of yours for quite a while.
Oh, cool.
You're in multiple bands, and you are a co-founder and CEO of Patreon. I'm telling you these things as if you don't know them. But you've made all of these things successful, very successful. You're in Pomplamoose, Scary Pockets. Yeah, awesome. Well, it's great to have you. Two Jacks having a conversation about being a musician in 2024. Do you have any Jack nicknames that people have called you?
Oh yeah.
So
Endless. Cracker Jack, Jackers, Crackbox, Jackson, Mr. J, Dr. Jackface. There's a bunch of them.
Oh, Dr. Jackface. I've never heard that one. Yeah. I got Jack Attack.
I get that one too.
Action Jackson.
Oh, I get that one too.
Oh yeah. I didn't think you would. That's funny. I heard only a couple people say that, but that's funny.
A guy that I went to, a kid that I went to school with in second grade, third grade. His dad used to call me Action Jackson. I remember him.
How funny.
His name was Dave Torres.
Yeah, I think that stems from like a Rocky movie, doesn't it?
It's a film thing. It's like
for sure. So you're in two bands, Pomplamoose and Scary Pockets. I love just coming up with band names. I always am coming up with band names, even though I don't need one at the moment. But I always figure a good band name could also just be a good song name. So I'm always jotting down like cool band names. So Pomplamoose, let's start there. Where did that name for the band come from?
It's ridiculous. It's such a silly story. But I think it's because we didn't know that it was going to be like a thing, right? So we just came up with a name really quickly. Natalie had just gotten back from France, and she thought the word pamplemousse, which is French for grapefruit, her friend just thought that was like the most hilarious word, pamplemousse. It just like sounded ridiculous. And so they had a thing about the name of this, this word, or the sound of the word Pomplamoose. And so when we got back, we thought it'd be hilarious if we just called the band Pomplamoose, just as like a joke for her friend. And then it stuck, and now here we are 17 years later with a band called Pomplamoose. So it was literally like once we made that decision, we like bought the domain, and then it was just like it was off to the races. And it wasn't big and strategic, or there wasn't a big Google Doc with a bunch of brainstorms. It was just like, let's pick the name and go.
Yeah, and once you have the domain, it's like, well, no turning back now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Now, does Natalie and or you speak French?
Natalie grew up in France and Belgium and speaks French fluently.
Oh wow, cool. Yeah, because I noticed a lot of your songs are also in French.
Yep.
So that's cool. Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because And Pomplamoose, I never knew that's French for grapefruit, because I was wondering, because I one of my favorite LaCroix flavors is Pomplamoose.
Yeah,
And
they
I
spell
never
it the
knew.
right way. We
Oh,
bastardized the spelling. We do it the American way.
there you go.
Pomplamoose, like the animal.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, and that's actually good for SEO purposes too. So you stand out from other people searching for the fruit.
Yeah, yeah. We spell it like it sounds, like it should
Yeah,
be spelled.
there you go. Right, right on. What about Scary Pockets? How did that come about?
Another dumb name. Scary Pockets. So Ryan and I really wanted to. He and I both kind of get in our heads about music. Maybe I shouldn't speak for him here, but certainly for me, I'm like hyper analytical about music, and I break it down and tear it apart and think about it, and why does this chord work, and how does this voice move to that voice, and what's the right voice leading for these chords, and like I've like overthink shit, not just in music but just in life in general. I'm really like, I overthink stuff. And I also, in what that means for me in music, is I have a tendency to like compose and write and arrange from my head instead of from my heart. And over the years, I've had to remind myself, like, dude, like music is about the feeling. It's about the emotion of it. And like, I can overthink my way out of like having a nice feeling experience, if that makes sense. And so Ryan and I both kind of deal with this and have had this be things in our lives. And so the idea behind Scary Pockets is like, look, it's just about fucking badass groove. That's what it is. Like, make a great groove. Make the pocket really strong. That's the focus. The pocket is the focus. Nothing else matters. Chords and harmony and this voice to that, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It's about the pocket. And we both wanted like an outlet for us that was like freedom from this sort of analytical oppression of our forebrains on our music creation process, where we could just be like, forget about all that. Let's just focus on the pocket and have an excuse to do that and have a lot of fun playing funk music together. And so the idea was the pocket should be so good that it's scary. That's it. And then we called it Scary Pockets. So,
Nice.
that's it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't even think about the pocket being that. I'm totally thinking like, my pockets are scary, man. My hands are in my pockets. It's scary. That's awesome. I love that. What's it like being in a band with your spouse, with Pomplamoose?
It's great. It's at first it wasn't great. It was really hard when we broke up. That was before we were married. But yeah, when we first started dating, we started dating and making a record at the same time together. And that was too hard. It didn't work. We just didn't have good communication with each other. We were like scared to give each other feedback musically and otherwise. And it just was like too much built up, and it broke, and we broke up. And then we got back together 9 months later, and then we just sort of decided not to make music together for the first couple years of our relationship, to just kind of let our love grow first. And I think that was the right decision, because we sort of built this foundation of like healthy, good communication and feedback. And we like built trust for each other and love for each other. And then like, once that was like in a solid place, we got into the studio, and it was just like, I don't want to say it was easy, because things are always hard, but like, it was the best collaboration of my life. I mean, just fluid, dynamic, fun, effortless, joyful, interesting, pulling me out of my comfort zone, pushing her away from hers. Like, I ended up making things I'd never made before in my life. Like, it was beautiful. And, it took us a couple years to get there, and we really had to focus on the relationship first.
Yeah. 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 It's really interesting, because it's a whole different dynamic, obviously, with a spouse versus anybody else. So I understand how that could have its great moments and then have its very difficult moments, for sure. Yeah. So you guys have been doing a lot of covers, right? And these really cool mashup covers too, which I've been really enjoying. How do you choose covers?
Yeah. So we've done covers for, probably 16 years. And originals too, but I would say a lot of our stuff in the last 7 years kind of went into more covers, and then we've put a break on the covers in the last 2 years to focus more on original music. And when we were doing covers, we want to find something. The way we chose a cover was we found something that we love about a song. It doesn't have to be the whole song. You can break a song down into, 6 or 7 main components. There's harmony, there's melody, there's lyrics, there's mood, there's feeling. Sometimes it's just a hook, like some kind of hook, whether it's a sound or an emotional hook or an instrumental hook. But we wanted to find something about the song that we really liked and wanted to keep, and then we wanted to throw everything out, sort of in the jazz tradition of completely reinventing a song. We want to keep the thing that we enjoy about it, and then reimagine everything else from the ground up. And so the key part to like finding a song that we wanted to cover is like, is there a piece of this that we're absolutely in love with? That's kind of part number 1. Part number 2, for many, many years, was like, because that was the way that Pomplamoose grew, was like, working on songs that other people were searching for online, and then those people would search for those songs and find Pomplamoose, and then, become Pomplamoose fans. So the second half was that, like, what are the songs that people are searching for right now? Like, what are the songs that people, will go down the rabbit hole and then find Pomplamoose on? So it was sort of a combination of those two things is how we chose songs to cover.
Interesting. Yeah, I was definitely curious if it was analytical as far as like what people are looking for, what's popular right now, or just what you're feeling in your heart, and a combination of both. That sounds like the right thing right there.
It was both. And then, sometimes we just love a song, and so we just do it. Even if it's not like a popular song or like people aren't searching for it. Both Natalie and I love great, especially like old music. And so sometimes we just want to do that, and that's that.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to do what you want to do. And kind of, I don't know if you've read the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I haven't, but everbe tells me about that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it is. And it is a subtle art. And sometimes you just got to not give a fuck and just do what you want to do. Because that's what we are as musicians, as artists, creators. That's where we started, right? We started out just doing what we love, and we can get sidetracked with metrics and stuff. Do you think musicians should be looking at metrics very closely?
This is an age-old question here. Should you be looking at metrics really closely? I'll tell you where I've landed on this one, which is, yes, I still look at metrics. Metrics are important to me. The important thing about metrics, though, is every platform has their own rules and their own metrics that they want you to want as a creator. They want you to open up their dashboard and optimize for that. And if you do that as a creator, you're just fucking yourself. You're giving them what they want instead of focusing on what your goals are as a creator. Is my goal watch time as a musician? Fuck no, my goal isn't. I don't give a fuck about watch time. Watch time is like a leading indicator of like, am I reaching other people? Which is like one component of something that I want as a musician. The danger with dashboards is that we condition ourselves over time to looking at the dashboards and seeing little green up arrows and red down arrows. And then 2 years later, we're like Pavlov's dogs. We've just been trained that like, oh, this is my goal. This is what I want as a musician. And that's bullshit. It's not what you want. Like, if you asked any older musician what they wanted from the 60s, 70s, 80s, it doesn't matter if you're talking to, Kurt Cobain or Elliott Smith or you name it, like they would have never told you that they want to maximize the number of hours that people spend consuming their art. Like that's just not something that humans have ever fucking cared about until the last 10 years of these platforms putting those dashboards in front of us. So metrics help you understand how your work is performing on a platform, which is often congruent with how the platform wants you to use their platform. It requires you to be very intentional about your goals as a musician. Why am I doing this? What matters to me? And making sure that over the long run, you stay true to that as opposed to just giving the platform what they want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it seems like more of I'll actually ask this question. What do you think we should be looking at as far as, is it more of how many true engagements that we're having with actual humans? Should we be looking at the human interaction versus these dashboards?
This is the hardest part. There is no answer to that question. I wish there was. I wish there was an answer. Here's what to do as a musician. And it's funny because people won't believe me when I say this. It really depends on what you want. I remember when Pomplamoose got started, there were people saying you have to tour as a musician. You have to go on tour. You can't be a band and not go on tour. And we said, nah, that's not what we want. We don't want to be a touring band. We want to live in our homes because we're both nerdy, introverted homebodies, and we want to make records from our homes, and we want that to be our business and our living. So we didn't tour. And there were all kinds of people who said, you're not real musicians because you're not selling tickets. And we said, okay, thanks for your feedback. We're going to go do what we love. And like, that's such an important thing about being a musician is like, don't let anybody tell you what you should or shouldn't do or should or shouldn't be looking at. Like that stuff comes from inside. What matters to me? What cares about me? What kind of business do I want as a musician? Do I want a community as a musician or do I want an audience? Like we all think that like you have to have a community or you have like you don't have to have anything you don't want as a musician. The internet has afforded us infinite possibility and we can build whatever type of music business we want nowadays. Like that's why I don't even like the term music business. It presumes that there is a music business. There isn't. There are music businesses now. There are thousands of music businesses, different formats, different types, and you can choose your own adventure as a musician. So what should you be looking at as a musician? Well, you should first start with what are you trying to accomplish? Do you love being on the road? Great. Then maybe a good goal is I want to be able to play 40 shows a year when I want, how I want. And I want to be able to sell 1,000 tickets in major markets when I go on those tours. And I want to be able to tour profitably. Great. That's an amazing, clear, specific goal. If that's what you want as a musician, okay, what are the leading indicators of progress against that goal that I should care about? Well, a couple of things are like, am I selling more tickets in major markets? Am I reaching fans around the world with my work in the places where I want to tour? And then like you can use your dashboards to help you find those metrics, which are more specific than the metrics the platforms give you off the top of the bat. So yeah, I think it really stems from first identifying what are my goals as a musician, and then what are the metrics and leading indicators of success toward those goals that matter to me.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. And you guys have really found a lot of success not touring, right? I mean, like tons of success. You got how many YouTube subscribers do you know that like Pomplamoose has?
I think Pomplamoose has like 1.8 million subscribers,
Yeah,
something like
amazing. Incredible.
Yeah.
Do you guys still focus on YouTube or is there a certain channel you're focused on to grow your creator side, your music?
that. Yeah, you know, this is so weird. I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, but I'm just going to be honest and tell the truth because I feel like we need to do that more. These like like people need to hear the real like stuff.
Please, yes, yes.
So look, the truth is like the world shifted away from like medium format video like I don't know 4 years ago now. Like we noticed that more people were watching vertical 60 to 90 second videos on TikTok and even YouTube Shorts and elsewhere. And so when we were putting out these medium format videos, we were like putting a ton of work into these videos, but we weren't even reaching our subscribers at that point because they were watching TikTok. They were watching short form. So in order for us to keep up with our fan base and build a community and build an audience, which is something that Pomplamoose does care about, we care about being able to reach our audience with our new music. Like one of Pomplamoose's goals is like when we release an original song, we want millions of people to hear that song. Like we want to reach the people who have chosen to form relationships with us. And for us, it's not about touring. It's about like, we want people to hear our work. And so what we notice is those people are not like those YouTube subscribers are not watching medium format YouTube videos anymore. They're watching 60-second vertical videos. And so what we did is we shifted our whole operation to focus on, well, how do we reach our fans where they are now, which is like, again, short form vertical media. So we started recording ourselves in the studio with 8 vertical cameras and we started just recording the whole day of us like recording and arranging songs. So 8 hours, 8 cameras. So you finish with 64 hours of footage. And then we hired a full-time editor to comb through all 64 hours of footage and build little fun stories that show what it's like to be with Pomplamoose in the studio, with the goal of making it feel like you're there in the recording studio with us. Like you get to be a part of a recording studio day. And that helped us maintain and build a relationship with our community, with our audience, and then also reach new fans as well online. But yeah, we shifted our like primary focus away from YouTube and toward short form, because our thought was, look, short form's here to stay, for better or for worse. Like whether or not we like that, medium shift, it is happening, and we want to be able to reach our fans and build that community. And so we're going to do that. And we did, and it's been amazing. I mean, now, Pomplamoose went from 6 million views a month on medium format videos to 30 million views a month across short form videos, with this shift in our new operation. So like it worked, and we've, and it was actually better for us. It's one of the things that allowed us to focus on originals, because, sorry, I'm really going on about this.
No,
but
please,
it's like,
please. I love it. No.
People don't, YouTube is a search engine, right? So like people search for Beyonce or Billie Eilish or whatever. TikTok is not, and short form ecosystems are not. That's a huge opportunity for people who make original music like Pomplamoose. And what has happened to us is like now, we're releasing these original songs and they're getting millions of views on short form ecosystems because nobody has to search for it. They just stumble on it. And if we make really badass stuff, it'll float up in the ecosystem and people will see it. And so we've shifted our focus to original music. We've stopped putting out a new horizontal music video once a week, which is what we were doing for 6 years. And now we just put out these behind the scenes videos. It's like 1,000 times less work for us because we don't have to be putting out a new music video every week. This editor is amazing. She has the most hilarious, wonderful, comical voice, and she really captures like what it's like to be with Pomplamoose in the studio. And so she makes these wonderful little 60-second clips that are just so joyous and fun. And that takes like no work from me and Natalie. So we get to shift to original music. We get to spend less time doing the things that we don't want to be doing. We get to spend way more time working on original songs and recording original songs, which is like the best case scenario. So like this medium shift that we didn't want to participate in, from, moving from horizontal to vertical, ended up being like one of the best things we ever did for the band.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And so now you're delivering what not only the people want, because that's where they are. They're watching those short-term form videos, but also the algorithms, I'm sure, are rewarding you for that. And that actually is a good segue into my next question, which, it seems like, so my deeper connection with Pomplamoose and with you, is really, I think, comes from you telling your story and not just the art itself, not just making really good music, really good art, and that's what sounds like this is doing too. Like you're able to get your original songs now out in front of people, but really the core of that is getting behind the scenes, seeing you guys being human people that are real. How important do you think that is? And do you think that maybe a lot of musicians are missing that point of like telling their story or showing behind the scenes kind of stuff?
It depends on what you want as a musician. I know there's a lot of musicians who don't want to bring their personality to their music. They don't want to show the world who they are. They're private people, and they would prefer to like let their music speak for itself. I have insane respect for those musicians. And man, in general, it just bugs me, when people, in authority positions tell you have to do it this way or you have to do it that way. And so like, I wouldn't ever want to tell a musician, these days you have to like show people your personality and you have to have a Instagram account and a TikTok account where you show yourself eating breakfast. And like a lot of people don't want to do that. And like, great, like power to you. Don't do that. So like, do you need to do that? No. There are like so many examples of musicians who have not done that, who I have deep, profound respect for. Big Thief. Oh my God, those
Oh, I
records
love
are
Big Thief.
insane. And they're just gone. They're just like not on socials. They're just like, they don't exist on the internet. Fucking, that's so awesome. Like, that's such a beautiful thing that they've created. They've done what they want to do. She's done what she wants to do. And that's so great. So there are ways to set it up and do it however you want to do it.
Yeah, how do you think Big Thief had their? I mean, do you think it's more of a touring thing? Do you have any like thoughts on their success?
Yeah, I think in some capacity or another, you have to somehow have to. I don't even want to say have to. It can be beneficial to have an ongoing relationship with your fans somewhere, whether that's Spotify or touring or something. And I think for Big Thief, it's been touring in their records. That's where people are interacting with Big Thief. That's where people are listening and hearing Big Thief. And so it's worked out for them like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, for some people, they don't, like Pomplamoose, like we don't want to be on the road. So it's got to be somewhere else for us. And for us, it was social media.
Yeah, and you guys don't focus on live, but I have heard you say before that your live show is incredible. I've never been to one, unfortunately. I'm down in like San Luis Obispo area, if you're familiar.
Yeah.
So if you guys ever want to come down, we have some decent venues these days. But you've mentioned how like and you crowd surf and all that. Like, how is the live show for you? Like, it's a whole different feeling, right?
Yes, live is a different medium than records. And what we've found is like we have to treat it as a different medium. We explore that medium for what it's good at versus trying to one-to-one emulate our records. We want to create, like when we play live, we want to build an amazing live show. Like that's the goal, is like put on an amazing live show that we love to play and people love to experience. That's it. Like the goal is not make it sound exactly like the record. And I think like whatever, I'm not saying anything profound here. This is something people have known about for a really long time, right? That's why the Beatles stopped touring, because they got to the White Album, they were reversing guitars and putting echo chambers. All of a sudden they're like, oh my God, we literally can't play this live. Like you can't make these sounds live because the recorded medium is a very different than the live medium. And so yeah, we really want to take advantage of the live medium. Like we really want it to feel special and unique. And so I crowd surf, Natalie crowd surfs, I run out into the crowd, we form a big circle, we have mosh pits, people are jumping up and down and sweating, and we're, spraying water. Like it's fucking crazy. It's like a human tribal community togetherness mayhem experience, which is like, that's what you want live. Like you want to feel like an animal and like a human. And so we try, that's a part of what we want it to be. And obviously we want it to be very musical, and we want to have great musicians, and we want it to like, we don't want to like skip the music. So that's the main part. But there's like a togetherness and humanity part of it that's really important too.
Yeah. And it seems like you guys have really harnessed the whole funnel, because there's kind of, you have the social media, right, to get your reach. And then you have your community down here where like Patreon lives down here. And then you got like live shows, and you guys are filling those rooms because you've done it all, right? You not only are focused on the community, but you're also focused on the reach. And I think that's important to note too.
Totally. Yeah. That's a great point. And I think it's important. Look, it reminds me of something my classical music theory teacher in college told me. I think it's important to understand the mechanics of I don't want to call it marketing. It's not marketing. It's the mechanics of anything in the world, how things work. And you mentioned a funnel. The world is made of funnels. Funnels exist everywhere in existence, right? Like a sales team, for example, if they send 10,000 emails, they get maybe 1,000 responses to those emails, and then 500 of those people follow up to the response, and maybe 250 of them agree to the sale, and then of those maybe 180 actually like do the sale, and then of those maybe only 150 keep going afterwards. That's a funnel. It's like each step of the process you get like fewer and fewer, and the same thing is true with like fandoms. Like you might reach 10 million people with a video, but that doesn't mean you have 10 million fans. That's like 10 million views, and a view is not a fan. And like, it's really important, I think, for artists. I don't think artists should run their lives according to funnels, but to be aware of the mechanics, I think is important, because it helps you build an understanding, helps you build a model in your head of like how the world works and how things work. And it reminds me very, very much of my classical theory professor in college, who made us for a year in this theory course. He made us follow every rule of Bach chorales when we were building like 4-part inventions. He was like, you can't, like, no parallel octaves, no parallel fourths. Seven has to become a 3 in the next, in the next chord. Like all these like very basic rules of classical theory. And I remember thinking like, what the fuck? Like, I want to be a creative, like, I don't want to do math. Like, don't make me write a Bach, like that's 500 years old. Like I want to, and he was like, you have to know the rules in order to break them.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a year, like, I studied these rules like deeply, and I internalized them. And then at the end of the course, he said, okay, now that you know the rules, go write something, write anything you want, and like, go for it. Break any rule you want to break. And it was really wonderful. And it really helped me, for me at least, it helped me appreciate the idea of knowing the rules, but not being bound by them. Like, I want to understand the rules so that I don't have to follow them. But it doesn't mean don't know the rules. It doesn't mean don't understand the rules. It means like, be aware of the rules. Understand why they work. Understand the principles behind them, so that when you break them and do something completely different, it's rooted in some type of truth. So yeah, that's anyway. I think of like the funnel as one of those types of things. It's something that I am aware of and that I understand. I don't let it govern my life as like Pomplamoose, because I think then you end up becoming a media company and sort of mass producing factory stuff instead of staying true to your heart. But it's something I'm aware of, so that I can leverage it, in the back of my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I've been a little afraid to learn too much of the rules, because I'm afraid to be, like you said, bound by them. Like, if I know too much, then I might not accidentally do stuff and I'll be too intentional. But it does make sense to know those rules so that you can break them. Because if you don't know anything, then I don't know. It's kind of a catch-22 there, but
it's so true. Some of the best stuff I ever made in my life was when I didn't know the rules.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you classically trained then?
I am. Yeah. I grew up studying jazz and like jazz harmony and jazz theory. And then strangely, I moved to classical and then studied like classical theory and classical harmony, classical orchestration. And like was writing compositions for like symphony orchestra and stuff like that in college. So yeah,
Rad.
Which is usually people go classical and then jazz. And I sort of went the other route. But yes, I did study, but I guess, when I think back on like, that wasn't my path with engineering, right? I only started like studying audio engineering like in my 20s. And when I listen back to my production and my masters, from when I was like 24, I listen to that stuff and I go like, wow, that's really unique sounding. Like that's different, because I didn't know the rules of engineering and mastering. And like, the more I knew, the more like everything else my stuff started to sound. And so there's this balance of like, understand the rules, but then don't be bound by them. And that's the hard part, the hard part is like choosing not to follow the rules even when you know them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's almost like trying to hold on to a childlike feeling of just experimentation outside of anything, because that's when you watch kids do anything. They'll draw anything and be like, this is amazing. You're like, yeah, like, because they don't have any context. And they're just like, well, I'm going to go for it no matter what.
Yeah.
And the older we get, it's harder to hold on to that childlikeness.
It's so hard and so important. And yeah, I'm like actively searching for ways in my life that I can break out of that. You should, here's the way. And those things are invisible to us, right? Like at some point they become background constraints. The example I think about is my dog. My dog walks on the sidewalk now. She walks up the sidewalk, straight up the sidewalk. And then when the sidewalk turns, she walks to the left of the sidewalk. A sidewalk is an invisible barrier in the human mind. There's no such thing as a sidewalk. A sidewalk is just a road. It's just plain. It's just flat earth. but the dog knows now you must walk on the sidewalk. Like, because we've walked on the sidewalk for 12 years with her. And so she just has that in her brain. Like, that's an artificial boundary. We have sidewalks all over our lives, all over our musical productions, all over our chords and our harmonies and our fingers. We're just treading on sidewalks constantly, and we don't even know it. It's so hard to think, how do I run into the road and lose my mind in the middle of the road and make us think that like no one is expecting or would ever anticipate or think. Like, that's where interesting stuff lies. And so I'm trying to figure out always like what will help me get off the sidewalk, you know?
Yeah, the magic is in the mistakes. It's almost like you have to accidentally step and trip off the sidewalk.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, some synths are really good at that. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
way the synth is laid out, like you do things that take you off your sidewalk, right? It's like the subharmonicon is like that from Moog. It's an amazing synthesizer. It just like creates this strange patterned music that I never would create. And
Yeah.
it kind of helps me break my own boxes.
Yeah, that's fun. Also, I feel like a lot of possibly, and correct me if I'm wrong, your success is also the kind of quantity of like you guys are all the time just putting out new videos, and you've been doing that for years, right? Pretty prolific, I would say. Now, are you like super motivated, or do you have systems? Like, do you rely on motivation, or is there more to it than that?
Probably a mix of both, but we have invested a lot in building teams and like workflows and systems. So, you know, Pomplamoose, for those 6 years where we were coming out with a music video every week, 7 years, 6 years, 7 years, you know, there's a full-time team. And by the way, Pomplamoose was like still profitable. So we had like full-time team members. We employed them through Pomplamoose. Sometimes people think that like, you know, we fund Pomplamoose from our lives, and it's actually the opposite. Like Pomplamoose funds our lives from the, you know, from the money that the band generates, because we have
Amazing.
you know different forms of income through the band, licensing and streaming and ads and you know brand deals and all that kind of stuff. So, but yes, we hired a full-time team, so full-time editor, head of video, head of audio, and then a director of operations who sort of managed the pipeline and made sure that, you know, one new thing was coming out every week. And for many years, Nat and I were just giving feedback on every little thing, like, you know, 100 pieces of feedback on the audio, 100 pieces of feedback on the video edits, until we sort of found the right team and onboarded those, you know, those teammates, and like they started to learn our style and our voice and like what kinds of things we liked and what kinds of things we didn't. And it got to the point where we were offering very little feedback on the work that was coming out. So, you know, I would essentially go down to LA once a month, do a recording session. We'd arrange and record 4 songs in a day. And then the team would take all of that media and mix and produce and master and make the video. And then it would come out once a week. So like it got to the point where literally I was spending 1 day a month going to LA, and then 4 music videos a month came out of that. Because of this amazing team of humans who just is like so incredible. Athena and Ben and Dom and Chris. And so yes, it's a combination of like, you know, good team building and, you know, some like creative workflow systems. And then I think it's probably also true that a lot of it is motivation too. I really like making things. It's, I just love it. I just love making stuff, and I love arranging and recording and producing it. Just, I can't describe it. I guess I don't have to because I'm talking to a bunch of musicians, but like it is the thing that just fills me with rocket fuel, right? It's just like, when I'm in a studio, I'm just totally lit up and happy and fulfilled. And it's a wonderful feeling. So yeah, I think it's a combination of like, you know, when I get 10 seconds on a plane, I open up Ableton and I crank out, you know, a beat and some cool synth, and I, you know, map out some automation and I make something I've never made before, right? Like I fill my extra seconds with creation, you know?
Yeah, you have to keep creating, because I imagine you're very busy as a CEO, and it can be tough. But even having that once a month, 4 songs, or 4 songs in one day, it's also about that consistency. Like let's put that in place, and we know we're going to do that. It's kind of like time blocking on your calendar and really protecting that. Like no one's going to mess with this because we need to do this, and I also need it for myself because I need to create art, because that's where you started. I mean, and you're
100%.
still doing it. Yeah.
I mean, for the first 8 years of the 9 years of the band, well, let's see, 2008 to 2017. So yeah, 9 years of the band. I put every EQ on every snare drum and mixed and mastered every microsecond of audio that came out of Pomplamoose. Natalie and I wrote every song together. She wrote most of the lyrics and the songs. But like that was a co-creation process for us. I was adding the pressure. I recorded every instrument, every synth, every sound, like it was totally just the two of us. And it wasn't until 2017 that we sort of opened up Pomplamoose to be the effort of more creative people who we loved and trusted. And that was the thing that allowed us, that specifically allowed me to be a CEO and to have Pomplamoose, because Pomplamoose basically stopped producing from 2014 to 2017. And the reason we did was because, Patreon's a triple time job for me. It's a boatload of work and time and energy. I work like a dog. And so, not having a team for Pomplamoose meant Pomplamoose was basically not putting stuff out. So we needed to find a way where, I could go into the studio, record for a day, arrange, record, and then, we could involve more teammates to kind of help take things over the finish line.
Was that sort of painful to your soul when you weren't doing Pomplamoose stuff much?
Deeply.
Bet.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, which is why I ended up starting Scary Pockets and then working on Pomplamoose. It was Scary Pockets that came. So Pomplamoose started in 2008. Then Patreon started in 2013, and then I think by 2014 Pomplamoose released an album. By 2015, like I was at the point where, I was working from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Patreon, and then like Pomplamoose, would meet at like 11 p.m. at the office, and we'd shoot a video from like 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. And then I'd like get up the next morning and do the whole thing again. And I was like totally fucking wasted. I was like dying. And so I finally came to the decision like, oh my God, we have to just like take a break from Pomplamoose for a bit. And that was really hard to do. And I really didn't want to do it. It was a really dark night actually, when like we made that decision. of like not fun. Cause I like started this company so that I could be an artist. And I was like, oh my God, now I'm like, this is what the hell's going on, which I know that's the journey of so many musicians who start companies, but still it was hard for me personally. And then in 2016, Ryan and I got this idea of what if we had a team, of other musicians, and Ryan would play guitar, I would play keys, and then we'd have other people mix and master and engineer, and we just focus on the pocket. We'll just get the pocket, and then like we can have a team do everything else. That model worked really well because we had such amazing people, such amazing musicians, amazing engineers, and mixing artists and folks like that. And so then Pomplamoose looked at that and said like, I bet we could apply that model to Pomplamoose, which felt like a big evolution of Pomplamoose because Pomplamoose had previously just been Natalie and me. But we decided to give it a shot, and that's what ended up working.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of us nowadays, with the gear that we are able to have in our home studio, we can be just like in a room by ourselves. No other people. And that's how I make music mostly. And I have a vocal coach that is actually like a session musician bass player. And we're working on a song together right now. And it's coming along like a lot faster. I'm like, wow, maybe human collaboration, that's a thing still. And it actually helps with the creative process and getting stuff done and leaning on each other. We each have our own weaknesses and strengths. And so leaning on each other, like a good team gets stuff done a lot faster.
I very much started my musical career feeling like I want everything to be my voice. I want the mixing to be my voice. I want the engineering to be my voice. I want the words to be my voice. I want the harmony I want everything to be a medium of my personal self-expression. and it's not that I still don't enjoy that idea. Sometimes I want to engage in that. I want something to be fully 100% who I am. But over the years, I've really come to love collaboration with other people. I've really enjoyed that. Scary Pockets, working with another bass player who just adds a totally different vibe and sense of time and sense of melodic movement, and it makes something that you never would have imagined. And I think I used to feel like that was a signal of self-limitation, that like, I should be able to play bass like that, and if I can't, that's me not being a strong enough bass player. I literally used to like feel that way. It's like I should be able to do this all by
I need
myself.
to practice bass more.
If I were good enough, then I should be able to do that. And like, I just don't feel that way anymore. Like that's not my, the way I think of it is like, where do I want to spike as an artist? And like, for me, the thing that lights me up and is really interesting and exciting is like the communication of a feeling or an idea, and the general production associated with that. That's like where I want to spike. I want to be really good at like communicating something that I want to communicate through music, and putting the pieces together to make that happen. And like, if like, that takes a lot of expertise and time and energy to like get good at that. Like you have to try 100 times to like make something, and fail a lot. And like the number of hours required to like to get that sort of technical proficiency on bass and drums and guitar, like, and all the individual instruments. I don't know. Like I'm, it's not that I wouldn't love to be able to do that. I would. But the thing that I want to be best at is like conveying that feeling or emotion. And so I love working with other bass players now to bring their voice and their energy, and to work with another drummer who's like studied music from a different part of the world. And like, there's something I would never have even thought of or dreamt of, and they add it to the feeling, and it's just an incredible contribution. So yeah, I really like that now. And actually I've changed the way I'm making music to really think about like, what people do I want to collaborate with to bring their unique sound to this record in a way that I wouldn't be able to do alone. And it's funny. I didn't used to make music like that. And now it's kind of what I gravitate towards naturally.
Yeah, super fun. And then you could have other people to celebrate the success with it too. You know what I mean? Versus you're like by yourself, you're like, that was awesome. It's like, no, now you have other people who like, being at a party by yourself isn't fun. You want to have people around. So And a lot of times, just those little things that someone does that you wouldn't do is what brings the magic out in a song. Like sometimes it's that one little thing.
100%. It's just the musician. We did a cover of a Scary Pockets did a cover of an AC/DC song. Shook Me All. Wait, is it AC/DC? Shook Me All Night? Is that?
I think so. I think that's AC/DC. Yeah.
And the drummer is this amazing drummer named Tamir Barsley. He is an awesome singer-songwriter too, but he's studied music from all over the world. And he brought this sort of he brought this like Brazilian, I don't even know what it was. It was some like some vibe to the song that just would not have come from anybody else. It is uniquely him. And it creates this really fun tension in the song, and it's now one of my favorite Scary Pocket song that we've ever done. And that's like a great example of like, man, sometimes a person can just bring this one thing that like makes the whole thing pop. The other thing about it too is like the older I get and the more I spend like 5 hours a day staring at this thing and like 9 hours a day staring at this thing, the less I want to stare at this fucking thing. Like, I just want to be a human in a room with other people and make stuff with humans instead of making stuff with a screen.
Yeah.
And like when I produce alone, I'm like on Ableton, and I love Ableton, and it's an amazing piece of software, but I'd rather look at another person's eyes than stare at Ableton. And if I can like be laughing and engaging in like co-creation with another human being instead of like staring alone at a screen, just from like a how I want to live my life perspective, I'd rather do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that your first reaction when you do something great in the studio or you hear something that's amazing? Do you laugh?
Yeah, I do.
I do too. I do too. Yeah, I don't know why it is that when you like for something clicks, you hit that pocket, and then it's like you look at everybody and just start laughing.
Yeah.
I love that feeling so much.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
it is a
so
great
great.
feeling. I usually like shriek and it turns into a laugh. It's so joyful. It's the
Oh my
best
god! I don't
feeling
know
in the world.
why. I don't know why laughing is the reaction, but it's just because there's so much joy in it. I don't know. It's just,
You know what I think it is? It's well, I don't know, but I like humor comes from the unexpected, you know? Like when something is like unexpected and yet inevitable, it is like really funny. And and so when we're in the studio together and we like hit something that just like everybody knows it, you look around and like you felt it and they felt it too, and you both know that you both felt it somehow, and it's like it feels impossible that we all know that it just happened, and but yet it's inevitable. Like that is what
Mhm.
happens when you find something. And so it's this combination of like, holy shit, how did we hit that? And also, yeah, we hit it. And so it's unexpected and inevitable at the same time, and maybe that's what makes it feel funny.
That's cool that you have that same experience. And you also mentioned something about like you could put 10,000 hours or something into learning bass, but someone else already has done that. And so why do that when you know what you want to focus on and what you're best at? And something that you've said before that I've heard that really resonated with me was quantity leads to quality. And I thought that was cool because a lot of people feel like they're at odds, right? It's like quantity versus quality. It's like, no, no, no. Quantity is what leads to quality. Have you seen that in your own experience?
Yes, this is the ever evolving subject and debate of quantity and quality. I'll tell you where I'm like evolving towards right now, and my thinking is changing on this all the time. Right? It's like I don't have a set exact take. It's like as I get older and make more things, my take changes over time. But yeah, where I am now is, you know, I I I think quantity is a lever for quality. Like you can spend all your time writing one thing and just keep massaging that one thing and that one thing, that one song until you've just really nailed that song. But the core principle of the song might not be the best principle. And so if you spend all your time crafting that core principle, the core might not, even if it's not a rotten core, it might not be like an excellent core. And so instead, what I've started doing is like get a song out, done in like 25 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, like lyrics, melody, chorus, like get something out, finish it, get the song done, and then move on to the next song. And even if that song isn't 100%, it's like 75% like baked. I know the core idea of the song, and I can evaluate the core separately from the polish and finish around the core. So when I listen to it, I'm not listening to like, is this whole production perfect? I'm like, is there a core there that's interesting? And then I make 100 such cores. And when you have 100 of those, you can comb through a catalog of 100 cores and go, ooh, these 10 are really special. There's some core idea there that's just fucking cool. And you pick those 10 to spend your time polishing and crafting and making them better. And yeah, that way of working, which is a recent way of working for me, is like a real unlock. And I don't just do it to writing. I'm going to do it with production too. It's like, okay, get the production like 75% of the way there in like 2 hours, 3 hours. And then like decide, is that the right core of production? Or can I try a new production from a new standpoint, the new idea for production, and put some other production layer around this, and then make 10 different versions of the production, and then pick, okay, which production has the best core idea on this. So like the idea of going wide in order to find the thing that resonates most with you as an artist, that's like a thing that you have control over. Like you can control quantity. It's really hard to control quality. It's just really hard to do that. So yeah, I like the idea of going wide first, picking from 100 things that resonate most, and using that as a lever to find the thing that you really love.
Yeah, it reminds me of how the Red Hot Chili Peppers go about it with that I've heard like Rick Rubin talk about. Like we record like 100 songs, and then we whittle it down to 10, and then we do actually whittle that down to 5, and then we're like, go write 5 more because, it's like, or go write 100 more. And I'm been wrestling with that myself too, and I am starting to realize like a lot of times you think like a song is amazing, and then you lay it down and record it, and it's like doesn't something about it just isn't resonating. But then you record something else that you might not have even thought was great, and it pretty quickly you can tell. And I've totally done it where I'm like, I worked the hell out of this. Like I'm working on one song and I keep trying to, I'm like, what is wrong with this? Why isn't it clicking yet? And I add more layers and layers. And it's like, I should have just, if I would have worked on 6 more other ones and picked one from that, it would have been way quicker. And I would have had an amazing song.
1,000%. I'm actually doing that right now with a song that I've written that I found myself, I keep returning to see if I can get it to work. And I'm like, that in and of itself is maybe a sign that like there's something about this core idea that actually I should just stop working on, and I should just write 40 other songs.
Yeah.
And then see if one of those has a core idea that I like. And so it's almost like, yeah, if you find yourself like massaging because it's not sitting right, I don't know. For me, one way to think of that is like, oh, well, you're just quitting. Another way to think of it is like, there's something there that isn't right, and so it's better to find something else that is, and then spend your crafting and polishing time on that new thing that has a better core from the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes when you think that you wrote a great song and it's just not working out. It's hard to abandon that, or sometimes it's not the right time for that, And
totally.
So just move on and come back to it at a different time. What are you most excited about as a creator in 2024?
I'm always excited as a creator. I'm always like depressed and down as a creator too, but I'm always excited as a creator. It's both. Mm-hmm. I think this is a really interesting time, the best time to be a creator, the best time to be a musician. I've thought that every year of my life since, 2006. And every year it gets better somehow, I think. Certainly people disagree. People think it's getting worse and worse to be a creator, to be a musician. I disagree with that. I remember in 2004, 2005, is like finishing college. I started to use Pro Tools LE. And I remember showing some audio engineers my work. And they were like, that's not real music. You're like making it in the box. Like you're not using an SSL console. Like that's real music. You can't use this computer digital shit. That's not what real music sounds like. Can't you hear the difference? And I remember that was when I first got introduced to like that's not real music people. And then I remember 2008, Pomplamoose was like, oh my God, there's this new thing called YouTube. We can just put our music on the internet and reach people with it. Oh my God, this is incredible. Let's do that. And then we met the That's Not Real Music people who are like, YouTube is like, that's like cheap. That's like for like bedroom people. That's not musicians. That's not artists. Artists don't use YouTube to distribute their music. And then I remember 2019 rolled around. We were like, short form video. Wow, this is a huge opportunity to like work on original music instead of covers. This is like what we've always wanted. Let's like see if we can find the beauty in this new medium. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but like let's look for the beauty in it to see if it can help us accomplish our goals. Immediately, that's not real music. TikTok is the death of the world. If you use it as a musician, you're embracing the end of the universe. You're embracing the end of the album. You're moving to 90-second songs instead of 3-minute songs. That's not real music. Don't use TikTok. It's like every year of my life, there's been another that's not real music flavor and person and voice that like says this is the end of the world for musicians. And I just don't think of it that way. I think of it as like, how can this new thing that has popped into existence in front of my eyes as an artist, how can this new thing help me be creative and accomplish my goals in the world? And when I've looked at it like that, there's always something there. There's always some kernel of like some avenue, some new fresh insight or like something that I can do to make it work. And right now, the amount of things changing in the world for musicians is at an all-time high. There are 1,000 things that are giving us new possibilities, new avenues, new channels to reach fans, new ways to create things, new ways to reach people. Like I and I think the world is going to be full of that's not real music people. But I don't know. I'm excited about all of it. I'm not, and I'm going to point out I'm also depressed and nervous about a lot of it too. It's both of those things. But I think for me, like an important thing just in my life, and for me, just for my own psychological health and just as a person, is like I want to look at the things that are popping up as like ways that can help me express my creativity and do what I want to do in the world. So I mean, I think the new big version of all of that, of course, is like AI tools, and like a lot of AI tools, I think, are literally trying to just replace human creativity, which I think is garbage, and I don't like that stuff. Like, it doesn't even. I know it's getting better and better, but like I don't think that's how AI tools. I don't think that's the route that they're going to go to help me as an artist. Like my favorite AI tools are like Synplant, which is an ML engine that like tweaks the knobs on an FM synthesizer based on a sample that I upload, and then it recreates a FM synth that, you know, from scratch that sounds like that sample. Like that's an AI tool that helps me express myself as a human. Another one is called Emergent Drums, which creates new drum sounds using like AI and ML modeling. It creates new drum sounds from scratch, and then I can tweak those sounds, and I can make more sounds like this, or make it really different, or use this engine or use that engine. And I can craft these drum sounds that I've never heard before, and I can drop in samples and emulate those drum sounds. Like that is a tool that helps me express myself as a person. I'm really excited about those tools. And so, I think there's, I think there's a lot to be excited about right now as an artist. I think there's a lot to look forward to. I think there's going to be a lot of challenges, a lot of problems, but I think there's so much change and so many new ways that artists can break ground and be creative and do something that no one's ever done before. More opportunities now than there have ever been in the history of humanity. So yeah, like generally I'm pretty psyched about that. I think it's going to be a fun, weird, wacky few years.
I totally agree. And you know, the whole AI thing too kind of brings me back to our conversation about laughing with people in the room, collaborating with people. To me, that's the core of music, is actually like a human connection. And if you're in the room with an AI, there's no human connection. If the music came directly only from AI, sure, it's a great song, but there's no person behind that. And that sort of cuts the tie of the human connection, which I don't know. I believe that that's really the core of why we love music. I mean, I don't know, but
I have to agree with you. I think there's some music that is just like purely functional. It's like music to help you sleep, or like music to like, to like create a feeling in a, you know, you watch some piece of reality television and there's some like, you know, sort of generic sounding thing in the background that's supposed to sound like Skrillex. Like there's like that type of functional music in the world, but then there's music from like Kendrick Lamar, or like, you know, I know I've mentioned Elliott Smith before, but like these are like portraits of a conscious being and what they experienced as a conscious being on this planet. And that portrait makes me feel less lonely in the world when I see it. I see that person, and I see what they went through, and I see their suffering, and I feel heard by them, and I feel connected to them, even though I've never met them in my entire life. That's fucking art. That's beautiful. That's important. That's human to human connection in the world. I want more of that. And I think AI tools might help me achieve that, but I don't think it will replace that. That is the core of communication and art.
Yeah, and you can't be a true fan of an AI thingy, I don't think. Maybe you can, but that, to me, that also is sort of the core of Patreon then, right? The connection between the community and the artist. And do you think that being a creator yourself has put you in a perfect spot to lead Patreon?
I want to think so. And I do think so. Obviously I'm biased. but yeah, look, no fucking creative people are running any of these tech companies. There's no artists at the helm of these companies. That's a problem. Because the companies are built from the perspective of the consumer and the advertiser. And there needs to be a company out there that is built from the perspective of a creator. Like the way art and community has manifested on the internet in the last 30 years and the place that it's wound up, I'm just not satisfied with that. I don't think it's thinking about it from the perspective of the creator. There are some services that I love as a consumer, all you can eat this and $10 a month and you watch videos without ads and but what about all the creators who are spending their lives making those videos? One thing we found on Patreon is as a consumer, you don't have some set budget a month. It's not like you have $10 a month and you divide it amongst, if you support 3 creators, you divide it amongst 3. If you support, 20 creators, you divide it amongst 20. That's not how it works. There are people who are members of creators and they're members of 20 creators for $5 or $10 a month. That's the world from the perspective of the creator. It's not zero sum like the sort of consumer focused platforms have made us think that it is. And that's one problem. But there's other problems too around content policy and what you can and can't say and brand safety and what you can and can't create if there's brands, that are a part of the platform. And anyway, the point is there's a lot of problems that exist because we've taken the perspective of the advertiser and the consumer. And I think it's really important for there to be a company in the world that helps bring art onto the internet, art and community onto the internet, ultimately from the perspective of the people who make the art. And I want Patreon to be that company.
For sure. And I might argue too that some of this, maybe the success of Patreon is that you created it to solve your own problem as a creator, right? And so can you kind of tell us a little bit, because I could say what Patreon is and maybe we could hear your elevator pitch on it so that I'm not butchering it. But from that first solution that you solved, how has it evolved into the platform that it is today?
The biggest difference is Patreon started as recurring payments for artists. And now it's a media and community and business platform for creators and their real fans. That's the biggest change. And what that means is we really, for the first 6 or 7 years of the business, it was just recurring payments, just nail recurring payments around the world, 20 currencies, languages, get the CRM system right, get the payment relationships right, get the right billing system, get all this sort of infrastructure of payments, and making sure that was correct. We didn't have video, we didn't build podcasting, we didn't have community tools, we didn't have any of that stuff. And in the last 4 years, we've built all that stuff. We built video, we built podcasting. Creators are telling us hey, guys, the recurring payments thing is great, but I don't want to send my fans to YouTube to watch my exclusive videos. I want fans to be able to watch those videos right on Patreon. Same thing with community. Hey, why do my fans have to download another app when they join Patreon in order to be a part of a community? Shouldn't you guys just have community right in the apps? And so we've built all that. And what that's meant is the company has really transformed from, just being recurring payments to being a better way for art and community to exist on the internet. It's media, community, and business for the next generation of, artistic online creativity. And for super fandom too, right? We want fandoms to thrive. It's really hard to build a fandom nowadays. That's one of the things that I'm really angry at the internet about.
Yeah.
You build a community on Instagram and 5 years later, even if you have 500,000 followers, you make a post and you reach 1,000 people, 500 people. You can't even reach your fans anymore. There's no place for actual for building an actual fandom, for building an actual community. What the hell? It's like so fucked. And we're all just accepting that. We're all just like, oh yeah, I guess that's like what Instagram is doing. It's like I make a post and now I can't reach my followers anymore. Okay. And then we keep going. That's dumb. That shouldn't be how the world works.
Yeah, we're at the mercy of an algorithm.
That's not how it should be. So yeah, we want to build a place where if you build a fandom, you can reach your fandom. Like that fandom should get more energized over time, not de-energized over time.
Have you heard from any people on Patreon that they feel like they can't take a vacation? Because I know a lot of it's recurring payments. Do they feel like tied into like, I got to create every month because these people are paying me?
You know what's crazy is I think some of that pressure exists elsewhere. And I've even heard some creators mention it, but what we found is creators can literally just go to their audience and be like, guys, I'm tired. I need a break. When they say that on Patreon, there's this amazing reception to that because the people that are there, they're your people. They're like rooting for you. They want you to succeed and be happy. Like that's your core group. And so we have creators say that all the time. And they like sometimes will pause there. They won't do payments for a while. And we're also building new ways because of that and other reasons too. We're building new ways that creators can build businesses because I think what you're getting to the core of is like recurring payments, like membership doesn't necessarily work for all types of artists. There's some artists who like just want to sell their album when it comes out and they don't want to collect payments in between. And so we've actually built commerce so that you can just sell your album. And then you don't have to accept recurring payments, but you can reach all the fans who bought your album the next time your album comes out. So we built this thing called shops. You can put up your album for sale. You can sell it to your fans. Those fans give you their email address. And then when your next album comes out, you can reach all those fans again through email. You make a post, you can reach them. They can buy the thing online again on your Patreon. So we're building other ways for creators to build businesses that isn't like recurring media, essentially. And I think that's important because not all creators are sort of on a weekly cadence of publishing.
Sure. And I imagine some are using both, right? They got some recurring and some one-time sales.
Totally. There's some creators who have memberships and then they also want to do a course for their fans, or they also want to sell an album or something like that.
Yeah. Are there any standout successful creators on Patreon that come to mind that are delivering some really cool stuff for their patrons?
Oh man, I don't know if you're familiar with Koan Sound, but like they're one of my favorite producers of all time. They actually their record in 2010, Funk Blaster, was like one of the reasons I started working on semi-modular synthesis and learning how to do like bass music production. Was that record?
Wow.
And they started a Patreon a number of years ago, and they've been doing these in-depth deep dives into their Ableton sessions and their filtering techniques and their audio engineering techniques and the how they build like respaces and how they build talking basses and like how they think of drums, and like they've been doing these incredible deep dive sort of videos and yeah, something like that where you get like a closer behind the scenes glimpse of one of your like favorite producers, like that. I think they're absolutely nailing it. Like it's just such a special thing to have and something that they wouldn't be able to do unless there was a business around it, right? Like that takes a lot of time and energy for them to create that. And so the fact that it can be like a self-sustaining business for them, I think is an important piece of why that exists in the world.
Yeah, the monetization of it allows them to keep doing it. And that's kind of all of our dream, right? Is to like make enough money so I can just focus my time on this because this is what I love. It's what fills me up. What makes me like excited to maybe I'll wake up before my alarm because I'm excited, not dreading going to work.
Exactly. Like, yeah, that's the goal. The goal is, there's a book, I haven't read it, but some folks have told me about this over and over again, the concept of an infinite game, where the goal is just stay in the game, just keep playing. Like I remember my buddy Ryan was on tour once and somebody said on the bus, I think it was, I don't remember the act he was touring, somebody said like, what's the point of making an album? Why do you make an album? And and the person said, so that you can make the next album. Which is like, that's it. Like it's so simple, but so like, that's it. That's what we, another example is like, Van Gogh for years, like painted paintings. And nobody saw the paintings except his brother. There's this wonderful, video essay on this by Adam Westbrook. It's called Painting in the Dark. It outlines this whole story. It's incredible. But the idea is like Van Gogh painted for 11 years and showed nobody. And the reason that he did that was because he loved to paint. End of story. For him, it was autotelic. Autotelic means a behavior that you do for the joy of the behavior, not for an expected outcome. Mm-hmm. And for Van Gogh, painting was autotelic. For me, synthesizers and modular synthesis and production and arrangement, like it's autotelic. I do it because it's joyful. End of story.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's how we started. And it can be hard to keep that in mind all the time, because there are these metrics and these people, or you release something and there's crickets. But I always try to tell myself, be in a hurry to take action, but be patient for results. And just make stuff, share it, and then don't worry about it. And I'm sure you have this feeling too. It's like nothing ever feels necessarily finished, but it's time to move to the next thing. And it feels so good when people see it. It doesn't matter if it's like just my mom saw it. It's like, it's done. I get to move on to the next thing. I'm so happy I get to move on to the next thing.
I love that. It's funny because it's nuanced. I'm not one of those people in the world. I wish I was. I really do wish I was. I'm not one of those people that can claim that I don't care if other people hear my thing. I'm a little ashamed to admit that, to tell you the truth, because it feels impure. Sometimes I hear artists speak about this and they're like, I don't care if people hear it. I just want to make stuff. And so I make things completely for me, 100%. I don't care if anyone else hears it or interacts with it. And I always hear that as an artist, and I'm like, fuck, I wish I was like that. That feels pure. That feels badass. That feels like something about that is more real than me. And man, it's like I still feel embarrassed to like talk about this, but like that's not me. I'm not like that. Like, I love making stuff. It also is important. Like, if I don't want to live on Earth without impacting my fellow humans. Like, having my ideas resonate with other people and having impact on other people feels psychologically important to me. Like, it just is a part of what lights me up, is like if I have a positive impact on my fellow humans, whether that's through a business or through art or through communication or giving a talk or doing an interview like this. I want to inspire people. I want to help people. I want people to feel less alone. I want people to feel heard and understood. And so, yeah, I'm not going to pretend like I can just put something out and if nobody hears it, I'm fine. I actually don't feel that way. It feels better when I put something out and other people hear it.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'll say that I love that you're saying that, and because I feel like it's very authentic. And again, and that's actually, I haven't done a ton of interviews, but the ones that I've done, almost every time the recurring theme is authenticity. Is like the moment they became true to themselves and being authentic, that's the moment they got traction. But I'll say that I think that a lot of those people that are saying they don't care, it's not true. I can't believe it, because I am the same way. Even though I said yes, even if only my mom saw it, I'm still happy I get to move on to the next thing because I'm done. I like finished. But I would love it if, more people, all my songs have the under 1,000 streams on Spotify. And I'm like, I really wish I could break that. Like, I do. I want to reach people.
Yeah.
I think we all do, really.
I think that's normal and natural. And I think a lot of people say that they don't care about that because they think it's selfish to care about that, or that it's egocentric. I don't think about it that way. I think about it in a way of the same way that helping others feels good in life, community feels good. Service to others, giving to others, value creation for other people feels good. Like we are hardwired to want to help. Humans are good. Like 99.9% of humans, I think, are good and want to do the best right thing. And that involves having impact on others. It involves like saying something or making something or building something that has a positive impact on other people on this short time that we get to exist on this planet. And that doesn't feel selfish to me. That feels like wanting to help. That feels like wanting to contribute. It feels like wanting to build for others. And so I like to think of it like that. It's like I want to make something. It is joyful to make that. And I also want it to help other people, as best it can.
Yeah, not selfish at all. I totally agree. Okay. Also, just one more thing about Patreon, and actually something that you said that I've heard you. I think you did a South by Southwest keynote not too long ago. You mentioned the death of the follower, and I think we've kind of touched on this earlier, but what do you mean by the follower is dead, and what do you think we should do about that? Like, what do we do as musicians about that?
How deep do I want to go here? This is a very important subject to me. Patreon has focused entirely. The whole company is 420 of us now, 430 of us, and the whole company is focused on this thing that you just mentioned. When Web 2 came out in like 2005, the like beauty of Web 2 was for the first time on the internet you could publish. Like before 2005, you couldn't really publish. The internet was mostly read only. You log in through AOL, you read the news. It was consumption based. 2005 rolled around, you could create, you could publish. And with the ability to publish through Facebook and SoundCloud and Instagram and YouTube, whose motto was broadcast yourself, publish, right? It's like that's Web 2. With that came the ability to subscribe to the people that you enjoyed hearing from. And so you saw a subscription button under a YouTube video, you saw a follow button on Facebook, you saw a follow button on Instagram. And this idea over a 10-year period created these clusters of a publisher in the center and then a cluster of people around them who were subscribed to their work to hear more of it in the future. That was a foundational piece of architecture for human communication and creativity on the internet, the follow. And for many, many years, the internet was organized around this concept. It sort of created this giant system for the distribution of creative work from one person to another in this huge web of people on the internet. Then a lot of things happened, but it sort of culminated with TikTok building the For You feed, which was the idea that like TikTok basically said, okay, forget about this whole concept of subscriptions. We'll have a follow button, but it's more like a like. It doesn't really do anything because your feed is going to be built one post at a time of posts that we, TikTok, think you will like as a consumer. These are not people you've subscribed to. These are not people you follow. These are people we think you're going to like. And so TikTok rebuilt the feed, not around the follow, but around personalization. And then it worked. And because it worked, Facebook had to copy them, YouTube had to copy them, Instagram had to copy them, and suddenly everybody ditched the follow and started building these For You personalized feeds. That's why Instagram is all clogged up with recommendations now instead of the creators that you want to have a relationship with. Okay, the net impact of that on creative people over the last 4 years is that our communities, they're gone. They've vanished. The internet has moved away from the follow graph, is how tech people talk about it. We're no longer on the follow graph. We're on the interest graph, the personalization graph. And that is not good for creative people. If you can't reach your community, if you can't reach for any business, think about any business in the world, you have to have a way to reach your customers. Like, forget about just art. Like, just for any business, you have to reach, if you can't reach your customers, you can't sell things, you can't do things, you can't talk to them, you can't communicate with them. That's what these companies have now done to creators. They've cut us off from our fans and potential customers. which is no way to build a community or a business as a creative person. And so it's led to what I am now calling the death of the follower, which is we're moving into an age of the internet where these subscriptions and these communities and these followings that we've spent a decade building sometimes as artists, they're just not really followings anymore. They're not really there. And that makes it very difficult for creative people. So yeah, Patreon now as a company is organized around this problem. We want to build a better place where creators can build actual communities, where creators can have actual subscriptions to their work and be guaranteed that line of communication. To at least deliver the media to the fan, right? The fan might not watch it, but like it should at least be delivered to the fan. So yeah, that's what I mean by the death of the follower. We're entering a new age of the internet now that is after Web 2, and it no longer respects the relationship between the publisher and the person who signed up for the subscription in the first place.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of, as like we were saying before, social media, you build a following and you only get like 4% of the reach, you don't even reach that audience that you spent so much time building. So I've heard many people say, build an email list, capture emails because you own that, and it feels like Patreon's taking that to a new level, and we're getting into an even more intense thing where there's the death of the follower, where people just go to TikTok. They don't even follow you. So you're not even getting that 4% reach anymore. You're getting 0% reach unless you get lucky and get viral or something. But then that's not even fans. Like you said, that's just views. So it feels like Patreon is taking that whole concept of like capture their email. So you own that communication and you actually reach everybody to a whole new level where you have a suite of tools too, where you can share more than just an email, but a lot more. Yeah.
These platforms have turned into art slot machines. It's just like you get lucky 1 in 1,000, and then that video reaches, some number of people, and then everything else reaches nobody. That you can't build a business like that. You can't build a community like that. That's no way to run things from the perspective of an artist. I get why it works for the consumer. I get it, but that's not what artists need. And so there should be a version of that works for artists. And yeah, that's not how it's going to work in the future. And I'm actually sure of that. The reason is because everybody's starting to publish stuff on the internet. Like this idea of a creator, there's so many types of creators now, right? There's like tens of millions of people publishing on the web and building communities and trying to reach others. Those people need a way to it sounds so silly to say it. They need a way to talk to their communities. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
Of course somebody's going to build that. Now, whether it's email or a platform or both, the way we do it is both, right? So not only if somebody follows you on Patreon as a creator, you get that email address. And that's really important. Like they have to, people have to put in their email. And then as a creator, like you can, if you wanted to like port your following somewhere else, like you can, right? You can just like download your CRM from Patreon and bring it into MailChimp, or use our integration, or like, but the point is like you own that relationship as a creator, not Patreon. And that's important. It's funny. I remember pitching Patreon. By the way, we've been doing that since 2013 when we launched. You own the relationship. You get the email as a creator. I remember pitching the idea to some investors, and some of the investors were like, Jack, you shouldn't do this. You're like taking away all the power and control from the platform, and you're giving it to creative people. And I was like, yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, that's what you needed. That's what you wanted, and
right.
so you're delivering that to other artists. Yeah. That's so funny. Well, I know you're a busy guy. And we've been talking I've been having so much fun that we've talked for a very long time. So I appreciate you really taking the time. Can I ask you 2 really quick final questions?
Yeah.
Do you read books?
I do read books, yeah.
What are you reading right now?
Right now, I'm reading The Power of a Positive No,
Ooh, okay.
and another book called When I Say No, I Feel Guilty.
Ooh, okay. So that's a great subject. Saying no is important because anything you don't say no to, you're saying yes to, and then you're really filling up your calendar.
Yeah. And I've had to get a lot better at focus and prioritization over the last 10 years because there's a lot of things I could spend my time on, but like what I spend my time on is really important. Um, and so that means saying no to like most things, actually. And so I need to get really good at doing that. And it doesn't feel good. I hate it. Like I do feel guilty when I say no, and I don't like saying no. Uh, but I have to for like my own good, for the good of the company, for the good of Pomplamoose. Like we just have to say no a lot, and so I'm trying to get really good at that.
Well, I appreciate you saying yes to this interview. I was actually sat down with my wife and I'm like, I just emailed Jack Conte and I don't know, it'll probably be a while. He's busy, And it was like 2 minutes after I emailed you, you emailed me right back. I'm like, dude, he said yes right away. That's awesome.
I've been a fan of you guys for years. I'm a fan of I've read a lot of Derek Sivers, the founder, and I also really like talking about artistry to artists. And so any chance that I have to sort of talk about being an artist to artists is always really inspiring for me and lights me up and is like a fun thing to do. And then of course it's also good, for Patreon because we get in front of artists too. And so it kind of
course.
yeah, it makes sense as like something that I want to do for sure.
Yeah, I love talking to other musicians that are really passionate about it because I'll talk to my like either kind of music, like they're musicians, but they're not as passionate, or non-musicians. And like, I'll be talking about nerdy stuff and they're just like, they're like, you lost me. I'm so bored with this guy. But when I get with like musicians and they're into it, I'm like, dude, let's talk about this. We can talk for hours, man.
Oh my God. I've got this show called Dead Wax where we just like pick apart songs and we get super nerdy on the harmony and the like production and every element of the song. Oh, it's so nerdy,
Wow.
but it's like it is so fun to just dissect the shit out of stuff that we love and think about why it's amazing. And Ryan and I have that show together. Yeah. And then we bring on other musicians who are equally nerdy and we just dissect it together. And God, it's so fun. I love it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Last question. You talked about protecting your time with nose. What do you do with your free time outside of music, outside of being the CEO? What else do you do?
I recently, like in the last few years, I've started flying, which is it's something I never would have done before because I'm fearful of flying, and I went to cognitive behavioral therapy for a year and a half to get over my fear of flying, and it's only mostly worked. I'm not over it, but I can do it now, and so I paraglide. So I run off the top of a mountain with a parachute, and then you can like catch thermals, which is like rising columns of hot air. And then if you corkscrew up, if you turn at the right pace, you can core a thermal, go all the way up and then reach the cloud bed, which I have now done. And it is scary as fuck and exhilarating and fun. And the most beautiful thing about it, I think, is it requires 100%, not 99.9, 100% engagement, full attention. If you don't, you die. So you must be fully engaged on the activity of flying. Everything else in my life disappears when I'm in the air. It's like I'm not thinking about music. I'm not thinking about business. I'm not thinking Patreon. I'm not thinking internet. I'm thinking about flying in the sky with like a bird. Like that's what I'm thinking about.
Wow.
And God, it's so nice to have a full and complete respite from everything else in my life. It's like it's a small moment of time, but it makes a big difference on just like a full brain refresh.
Yeah, it sounds like a meditation. Practice.
Totally.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Totally.
and talk about facing your fear head on.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all the time, Jack. This has been incredible. Do you want to say like where to find you or Patreon?
Yeah, just search Patreon or Jack Conte or Pomplamoose or Scary Pockets, and on the internet you'll see all of our stuff.
There it is.
Cool.
Thank you again, Jack. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right. We'll see you
Appreciate
later.
it. Okay. Bye. Bye.